I was still wearing David's hoodie when I got the first text from Ethan. A gray Tuesday morning in suburban San Francisco, the kind of day where everything feels blurred, unreal. I drove Ava and Noah to school, the radio playing a podcast about happiness, but I wasn't listening. In the rearview mirror, I saw Ava twirling her hair, Noah kicking the seat. I smiled, but inside I felt hollow. Once a journalist in New York, now I was just Emily. Mom, wife, a shadow in a modern house with a manicured lawn. David, a software engineer in Silicon Valley, kissed my forehead that morning, said, "I'll handle dinner and the kids' baths. You rest." He smiled. I nodded, but my eyes were glued to my phone. Instagram was full of perfect moms. Organic breakfasts, luxurious vacations. Me. Just a part-time job at a non-profit and a feeling of fading away. Then the text came. Ethan, an old college friend, now a freelance musician. "You free? Music project, need a writer. Coffee shop." My heart pounded. Ethan, sharp eyes, reckless smile, the kind that once made me forget the world. I replied, "Sure." One word, but it woke a hunger in me. I parked in front of the school, kissed Ava and Noah, watched them run through the gate. David once said, "You're my everything." But now he's busy with Zoom projects, everything but me. I'm no longer the Emily of sharp articles. Ethan's text was a small flame, promising to bring back the person I used to love. I hit the gas, fingers gripping the wheel. My heart was a mess, like a crack silently spreading beneath the surface. I didn't know that text, that moment, would lead me to a place where everything I loved, David, the kids, our family, would shatter. I just knew I wanted to feel again, even if just once. The coffee shop on Valencia Street, San Francisco, smelled of roasted beans and played soft indie music. I pushed the door open, trying to stay calm despite my racing heart. Ethan was already there by the window in a faded denim shirt, hair slightly messy like he'd just woken from a long dream. He looked up, eyes bright, and smiled, a smile that made me feel like the center of the world. "Emily," he said, his voice low, stretching my name like a melody. "It's been forever." I sat down, fingers fidgeting with the edge of my latte cup. Ethan talked about his music project, a series of community performances, needing promotional content. He spoke fast, full of passion, hands drawing invisible shapes in the air. I nodded, but my mind wandered. Not to the project. To him. To the way he looked at me, not as Ava and Noah's mom, not as David's wife, but as Emily, the one who lived fully, who laughed loudly in endless New York nights. "You still write?" he asked, his gaze piercing. "Just a few lines for work," I said, my voice small, like hiding a secret. He leaned closer. "Such a shame. You used to write like the whole world had to listen." His words were a needle, pricking my longing for who I used to be. I smiled, changed the subject, but the feeling clung to me. After the meeting, Ethan texted. Not about the project, but a casual line. "Today was fun. Let's do it again." I stared at the screen, fingers hesitating. David was at home, probably coding or putting Noah to bed. I should go back. But I texted. "Sure." The days after, Ethan's texts became a new rhythm in my life. Question about writing, then a joke, then a photo of a guitar he'd bought. I replied first briefly, then longer, deeper. I started locking my phone, setting it to silent at home. David didn't ask, but I saw his eyes linger on my hands, where I clutched the phone like a secret. That Friday, Ethan invited me to his gig at a small bar in the Mission District. "Just friends watching me play," he texted with a winking emoji. I stood before the mirror, in a tight black dress I hadn't touched since David's last birthday. "Going out with Sarah," I told David, my voice light. He nodded, busy with his laptop, just said, "Have fun. Come back early." I left, heart pounding, not from the lie, but from the freedom rising in me. The bar was packed, dim with orange light, smelling of beer and perfume. Ethan was on stage, guitar in hand. His low, raspy voice like a story only I understood. I stood in the crowd, but it felt like just me and him. When he sang the last line, his eyes found mine, and I knew I was falling. After the show, he pulled me to a corner, handed me a glass of wine. "How are you doing?" he asked, his hand brushing my arm. A jolt ran through me. "Good," I said, but my voice wavered. We talked, laughed, and each word pulled me further from the suburban house, from David, Ava, Noah. That night I came home late. David was asleep or pretending to be. I stood under the shower, hot water on my skin, trying to wash away the creeping guilt. But it wasn't stronger than the other feeling, the feeling of being alive again. Ethan texted at midnight. "You looked beautiful tonight. See you soon." I stared at the screen, its light on my face. I didn't reply right away, but my fingers trembled. I knew I was at a crossroads. Part of me wanted to go back to David, to weekend breakfasts and the kids' laughter. But the bigger part wanted to dive into Ethan, into something dangerous, alive, not the me of repetitive days. Ethan's apartment in the Mission District became my sanctuary, a world apart from San Francisco's suburban streets, from breakfasts with Toast and Ava arguing with Noah over cartoon choices. The first time after leaving his place, I felt weightless, like I'd shed a heavy cloak I'd worn too long. The smell of coffee from his kitchen, light filtering through dirty window blinds. His guitar strumming aimlessly. It was a drug that made me forget my suffocation. I didn't think of David, the kids. Just me, Ethan, and that moment. The meetings came faster than I expected. At first, a few hours after work, telling David I had to stay late for reports. He nodded, busy with his laptop, didn't ask more. "Don't forget dinner," he said, his voice flat routine. I smiled, left, but instead of the office I drove to Ethan. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. Each touch made me someone else. Not the mom checking Ava's homework, not the wife scheduling parent-teacher meetings, but a woman desired, alive. I started changing. Not just with Ethan. I bought a new dress, deep green, the kind I thought wasn't for me anymore. I wore perfume again, forgotten since Noah was born. In the mirror I saw a version of myself I'd lost. Sharp, confident, unbound by mom or wife. I told myself this was self-care, reclaiming me. But with David I knew I was acting. "You look radiant," he said one evening when I wore the new dress to meet Sarah. I smiled, but his eyes lingered longer than usual, like he was searching for something. Ethan and I got reckless. Not just his apartment. Once, we met at a small hotel on the city's edge, where no one knew me. The room's large mirror reflected us, my hair messy, lips red, eyes bright with danger. As I left, Ethan grabbed my hand, pulled me back. "What do you think about this?" he asked, his voice low, eyes probing. I shrugged, smiled lightly. "Just fun, right?" He didn't answer, just looked at me, and I knew he wanted more. Not love but possession, the thrill of me as his secret. Lying came easier. Stories I made up, late meetings, friend outings, errands for the non-profit, flowed naturally as breathing. I created a fake Google Calendar, meticulously noting team meetings or client calls. David didn't suspect, or so I thought. He still made breakfast, took Noah to soccer, left a coffee on the table for me each morning. But sometimes when I held my phone and saw him watching, a chill ran down my spine. I brushed it off, told myself I was in control. One afternoon at the office, Ethan texted, "Want to see you." "Now." I glanced at the clock, 3 p.m., time to pick up Ava and Noah. I texted David, "Stuck today, can you get the kids?" He replied instantly, "Sure. Take a break." A twinge of guilt hit, but it faded when I reached Ethan. We were in his car, parked in a quiet park corner. The tight space, smell of leather seats. His breath made me forget everything. When I got home, David was reading to Noah. He looked up, smiled. "Work okay?" I nodded, avoided his eyes, went straight to the bathroom. But guilt crept in. Not for David, but for Ava and Noah. One night Ava asked, "Where do you go all day, Mommy?" "I want you to read to me." I hugged her, promised to stay home more, but the next morning I texted Ethan. I told myself I deserved this, that I'd sacrificed too much. Career, dreams, myself, to be a perfect wife, mother. Ethan was how I reclaimed me, even if it was an illusion. Sarah, my best friend, noticed. We met at a breakfast spot, and she looked at me, her eyes sharp as knives. You okay? You're acting weird. Something's up, right? I smiled, sipped coffee, said work was busy. But Sarah wasn't fooled. I've known you forever. Talk to me, she said, her voice soft but firm. I changed the subject, but her words were a stone in my chest. I knew I was on a dangerous path, but I couldn't stop. Didn't want to. Each time I left Ethan, I felt stronger, like I was rewriting my story. But at home, seeing David fold Ava's clothes or fix Noah's bike, I felt a void. Not guilt, but fear, that I was trading something bigger than what I gained. Ethan texted late when I lay beside David. Want you now? I read, deleted, turned off my phone. But I couldn't sleep. His image, his apartment, that freedom clung to me. I thought I could keep both worlds. Family on one side, fire on the other. But I didn't see the cracks growing, didn't see David watching as I left, didn't see he'd started to suspect. I only saw Ethan, and I dove into him like diving into a storm I thought I could control. Mornings in our suburban San Francisco home felt different now. The sunlight through the living room blinds casting sharp lines across the kitchen table where David sliced apples for Noah. Ava sat coloring, watercolors bleeding across paper. I stood at the kitchen door, holding a cold coffee mug, watching the scene like an outsider. I've got a team meeting today, I said, trying to sound casual. David looked up, his eyes briefly catching on my new gray sweater. Bought because Ethan said I looked good in it. Okay, he said, returning to the apple and knife. I'll take the kids to the park. Focus on your work. I nodded, a mix of relief and a dull ache in my chest. He didn't ask more. He never did. I drove to a small hotel in Daly City, where Ethan waited. No more his cluttered apartment. We picked farther, discreet places with heavy curtains and crisp white sheets. Ethan pulled me in, no words, just urgent breaths and touches that made me forget parent-teacher schedules, utility bills, Ava asking where I'd been. In that room, I wasn't a wife or mother. I was someone else, alive, wanted, needed. Leaving, I checked myself in the elevator mirror, fixed my hair, wiped smudged lipstick. I stopped at Whole Foods, bought milk and bread, like any ordinary wife running errands. But living two lives wasn't as simple as I thought. Got careless. Once, I left my phone on the dining table, screen lighting up with Ethan's text. Tonight 8. David was there, pouring milk for Noah. I snatched the phone, mumbled. Colleague about a project. He nodded, but his hand paused mid-air, the milk glass tilting slightly. I felt his eyes, not suspicious, but measuring something. I told myself to be more careful, deleted texts, changed my phone password, added fake meetings to my calendar. Ethan grew bolder. He texted during family dinners, sent photos of his guitar or just, miss you. I read under the table, heart racing, replied briefly, deleted immediately. I knew I was playing a dangerous game, but the thrill, the secrecy, the adrenaline was addictive. I couldn't stop. Didn't want to. Ethan started wanting more. Once in his car after a rushed afternoon, he held my hand, his voice low. If he's not making you happy, why stay? I pulled away, forced a laugh. Don't say that. It's not like that. But his sharp look told me he wanted to keep me in his world forever. Sarah, my best friend, got frustrated. We had lunch at a bakery near my office, and she set her plate down, staring at me. You're not okay, Em. You're dodging me, dodging everyone. What's going on? I sipped coffee, tried to stay calm. Just busy. Work, kids, you know. She tilted her head, eyes unwavering. I've known you too long. Don't lie to me. I wanted to spill everything, but I just smiled, talked about her summer plans. Leaving the cafe, I knew she didn't buy it, and that scared me. Not of being caught, but of facing myself. David stayed David, devoted, thoughtful, unsuspecting. Or so I thought. He fixed Ava's bike, took Noah to soccer, and sometimes when I came home late, left a plate of food in the microwave with a note. "Don't let it get cold." Those gestures cut into me, but I pushed them down deep. I told myself I deserved Ethan, deserved moments that made me feel alive. I wasn't just the mom checking homework, the wife scheduling our lives. I was more. Or I wanted to believe that. But I started slipping. Once, I mixed up a team meeting in my fake calendar, and David asked, "Home early today? Thought you were busy all evening." I stammered, said I got the schedule wrong, but my heart raced. I checked my phone constantly, terrified of Ethan's texts popping up at the wrong time. I noticed small things. David folding my clothes neater than usual, charging my phone without saying anything. I told myself it was my imagination, that I was still in control. But deep down I knew I was losing balance. One evening after leaving the hotel, I drove along the coast, trying to breathe to calm down. Ethan had said something unsettling. "If you want, I'm ready for something serious." I didn't want serious. I wanted this feeling, freedom, desire, danger. But at home, seeing David help Ava with homework, I felt a growing void. I kissed her, smiled at David, but Ethan and the hotel lingered in my mind. Lying in bed, hearing David's steady breathing, I wondered, how long could I keep both worlds? I didn't see David watching me differently, not with anger, but with a terrifying calm. I didn't see him waiting, gathering, preparing. I only saw myself, and the storm I'd created, growing closer every day. Every step I took now felt like walking on thin ice, ready to crack at any moment. Our suburban San Francisco home, once a place of safety, now felt like a maze of shadows. David still did the usual, dropped Ava at school, fixed Noah's bike, but his silence was a sharp blade, cutting me every time his eyes passed over me. I tried to make up for it, stayed home more, played with the kids, but guilt followed me like a shadow. Ethan kept texting, his tone more pressing. "When are you going to choose?" he wrote, and I replied curtly, then deleted. I didn't want to choose. I wanted to keep both worlds, even knowing it was a delusion. One Thursday afternoon, I was with Ethan at a small hotel on the city's edge. The light dim, curtains hiding every secret. We didn't talk much, just rushed touches, as if we both knew time was running out. My phone on silent sat in my bag on the floor. As I dressed, Ethan sat on the bed's edge, watching me with an unreadable look. "What are you running from?" he asked, his voice low, sharp. I shrugged, forced a smile. "Don't complicate things." But inside I knew I was running not just from David but from myself. When I grabbed my phone, the screen lit up with 12 missed calls. 8 from David, 4 from home. A text. "Ava fell at school. Might need stitches. At the hospital." My heart dropped. I didn't say a word to Ethan, just grabbed my bag, ran out, leaving his question hanging. I drove like a maniac through San Francisco streets. Hair a mess, sweater askew, Ethan's cologne still on my skin. Every red light was a hammer to my chest. I whispered like a prayer. "Please let her be okay. Please don't let David ask." I reached the hospital in 15 minutes, bursting into the ER breathless. David sat there, Ava in his arms, a white bandage on her forehead. He looked up, his gaze cutting through me. No accusations, no anger, just a look that knew. My messy hair, wrong day sweater, strange cologne. I knelt, hugged Ava, whispered, "Mommy's here, sweetheart." She smiled weakly, but David just said, his voice flat, "Doctor says she's fine. Cuts not deep." He handed Ava to me, and my hands shook as I held her. I wanted to explain, to say something, but his eyes stopped me. He nodded like everything was already decided. That night I didn't sleep. I lay on the couch, hearing David move in the bedroom. I waited for him to ask, to yell, but he did nothing. The next morning he made coffee, took Ava to school as usual, but when I said, "Thanks for being there yesterday," he just nodded, didn't look at me. His silence choked me. I wanted to confess, to beg forgiveness, but every time I saw him, I saw an invisible wall, taller, colder. I wondered, how much does he know? And why won't he say? I tried to fix it. I canceled a meeting with Ethan, said I was busy with the kids. He texted back sharp. You're avoiding me, aren't you? I didn't reply. I stayed home all week, baked with Ava, played soccer with Noah, tried to be the mom, the wife I used to be. But David was distant. He stopped touching me, stopped asking about my work. Once, while I washed dishes, he stood behind me, so close I felt his breath. You okay? He asked, his voice low like a challenge. I nodded, didn't turn around. Just tired, I said, my voice breaking. He didn't say more, just left, leaving me with the sound of running water and my racing heart. Ethan wouldn't let go. He called while I was at the grocery store, his voice in my earbuds. You can't just vanish like this. We have something, Em. I wanted to scream that there was nothing, that I just wanted the feeling, not him. But I said, not now. I hung up, hands shaking as I pushed the cart past the milk aisle. At home, David was on his laptop, screen showing a website I didn't recognize. He closed it when I walked in, but his eyes said he knew more than I thought. Paranoia gripped me. I checked my phone constantly, terrified of Ethan's texts appearing at the wrong time. I cleared my browser history, turned off location tracking, but felt like David was always one step ahead. Once, I found a slip of paper in his jacket pocket, a private investigator's phone number. My heart stopped. Had he hired someone to follow me? Had he seen me at the hotel, the cafe with Ethan? But he didn't ask, didn't confront. His silence was the worst punishment, and I didn't know how to escape it. That night, I lay beside David, hearing his steady breathing. I wanted to touch him, pull him back, but I didn't dare. I knew I was losing him, not because he was leaving, but because he'd already left me in his mind. Ava was okay, but the bandage on her forehead was a reminder. I wasn't there when she needed me. And David, who always was, now looked at me like a stranger. I didn't know he wasn't just suspecting. He was acting. I found a receipt in his jacket, a private investigation firm. My heart stopped. He'd seen me with Ethan, maybe at the cafe, the hotel. But he said nothing. He waited, and that waiting was scarier than any accusation. I lay beside him, listening to his breathing, and for the first time, I felt I wasn't his wife anymore. I was a stranger in my own home, and David, the man I thought would always forgive, was building a plan I couldn't see. The air in our suburban San Francisco home now felt like a shattered prism, each angle reflecting a piece of me. Mother, wife, betrayer. I tried to mend the tears. I stayed home more, baked cookies with Ava, played chess with Noah, but every time I looked at David, I saw a void I couldn't fill. He still cooked, still drove the kids to school, but his smile was just a line, no warmth left. I wanted to confront him, wanted him to yell, to break the silence suffocating me, but he did nothing. Just watched, like a chess player waiting for the final move. Ethan didn't stop. His texts came like waves, stronger each day. We need to talk, he wrote, his tone no longer light. I avoided him, canceled meetings, said I needed time. But one afternoon at the office he called. You can't keep hiding, he said, his voice sharp as a blade. If you don't want this, say it. But don't play games. I wanted to scream that I wasn't playing, that I just wanted to escape myself. But I whispered, leave me alone. I hung up, hands shaking, feeling like I was on the edge of a cliff. That afternoon, checking emails, a text from David popped up. No words, just an attachment, a photo. I opened it and my heart stopped. It was me, across from Ethan at a Mission District cafe. My hand touching his, my smile radiant. The photo was taken from a distance, but clear. My green dress, light glinting off my coffee cup. I texted back, fingers trembling. It's not what you think. David replied instantly. No need to explain. 4 words, but they cut like a knife, sharp and cold. I raced home, mind spinning. David was in the kitchen, chopping carrots for dinner. Ava and Noah played in the living room, their laughter like a foreign song. David, I said, my voice breaking. We need to talk. He set the knife down, looked at me, his calm terrifying. About what? He asked, as if there was no photo, no secret. I wanted to confess, to spill everything, but the words stuck in my throat. About us, I whispered. He nodded, said nothing more. Later, he said, then turned back to the carrots like I wasn't there. I tried to end it with Ethan. I met him at a small park far from my neighborhood. He stood under an oak, hands in pockets, eyes colder than usual. "What do you want, Em?" he asked, his voice low, harsh. "To end this," I said, staring at the ground. "I can't keep going." He laughed, not with joy but mockery. "Because of him? Or because you're scared of getting caught?" I didn't answer, just turned away, but he grabbed my hand. "If you walk away, I won't stay quiet." His threat was a stone thrown into a lake, rippling through me. I left the park, didn't look back, but knew I wasn't free. That night I tried to talk to David. I sat on the couch, him in the armchair, reading. "David, I'm sorry," I started, my voice shaking. He looked up, his eyes unreadable. "For what?" he asked, his voice light as air. I wanted to tell him about Ethan, the meetings, feeling lost. But I only said, "I haven't been a good wife." He nodded, closed his book. "Everyone messes up sometimes," he said, then stood, went upstairs. His half-forgiveness scared me more than any accusation. The next morning I woke to a house too quiet. No sound of David making coffee, Ava singing, Noah running around. I called his name, my voice echoing in the empty hall. I ran to the kitchen, found a note on the table, David's neat handwriting. "I know everything." 3 words like a punch. I opened the closet, empty. The drawer with our family photos, gone. David's, Ava's, Noah's passports in the safe, missing. Called David, got voicemail. I called his mom, his sister, no answer. I ran from room to room, heart pounding, but the house held only silence. I sat on the kitchen floor. David's note crumpled in my hand. I knew he didn't just leave. He'd planned this. The silent days, cold looks, the investigator's receipt. It was all part of it. He'd seen me with Ethan, tracked my lies, my absences. He didn't need to yell to fight. He just left, taking Ava and Noah, taking the world I thought was mine. I called again, this time his lawyer's office. A cold voice answered. "He's filed for custody. Papers are sent." Asked what about, voice shaking. "Evidence of instability," they said, then hung up. I sat there on the cold floor, note crumpled in my hand. Ethan texted, but I didn't open it. I didn't need him anymore. I didn't need that freedom anymore. All I wanted, Ava's smile, Noah's hugs, David looking at me like before, was gone. David didn't just know. He'd let me dig deeper into my mistakes, then quietly walked away. No accusations, no drama. Just silence. And that silence was crueler than any punishment. I hugged my knees, tears falling, not for losing David, but for losing myself and not knowing how to find my way back. The suburban San Francisco house is now an empty shell. No more Ava's soft singing. No more Noah's footsteps thudding on the hardwood. I sit on the couch, afternoon sun through the blinds lighting the bare wall where family photos once hung. Moments of David and me laughing with the kids at Santa Cruz Beach, now just blank space. David's note, "I know everything," sits crumpled on the kitchen table, like a scar I can't touch. I call him dozens of times but get only voicemail, cold and distant. I text his mom, his sister, even his old tech company colleagues, but no one responds. It's like the world agreed to erase me from their story. I try to find David. I drive to his Silicon Valley office, but security says he's on leave. I go to his mom's house 2 hours away, but the door's locked, blinds drawn tight. I stand outside, peering through the fence, hoping for a glimpse of Ava or Noah, but there's only stillness. I call Sarah, my best friend, hoping she knows something. I tried to warn you," she says over the phone, her voice sad but firm. "You chose this path." She hangs up, and I know I've lost her too. I sit in the car, hands gripping the wheel, feeling the world collapse around me. The next day, a letter from David's lawyer arrives. A filing for temporary custody, listing me as an emotionally unstable mother. Evidence attached. Photos of me and Ethan at the cafe, the hotel, location history from Find My iPhone, even a text I forgot to delete on the iPad, Ethan saying, "Want you now." David collected it all, every piece of my betrayal, like a scientist assembling a puzzle. I read the file, hands shaking, each page a knife. The hearing is quick. The judge, a middle-aged woman with stern eyes, looks at me like something broken. "You can apply for supervised visitation after 90 days, she says, "if you show improvement." Improvement. The word echoes, but I don't know what it means. How do you improve when you've destroyed everything? I return to the house, once a home, now a cold space. I try calling Ethan, thinking he might be an escape, but he doesn't answer. One text from him. "You chose him, didn't you? Good luck." I delete it, feeling nothing. Ethan wasn't the answer. He was just a flame I mistook for light. I sit on the living room floor, clutching Ava's old sweater, still smelling of baby shampoo. I cry, not for David or Ethan, but for the kids. Ava's gap-toothed smile, Noah's tight hugs. I wasn't there when Ava needed me, when Noah asked where I was. I chose Ethan, chose myself, and now I have nothing. I start writing. Not articles like before, but journal entries, spilling my broken pieces onto paper. I thought I was living, I write. But I was only destroying. The pages are tear-stained, but they keep me sane. One day, I find an online support group. Women like me who lost families to their mistakes. I read their stories, confessions of regret, and for the first time I feel not entirely alone. I join a Zoom meeting, sitting in the corner of the living room, listening to a woman talk about losing her kids to alcoholism. I don't speak, just listen, but when I log off I feel a tiny spark. Not hope, but the possibility I might find a piece of myself again. One morning I find an old photo in a drawer. David, Ava, Noah, and me at Golden Gate Park. We're laughing, hair blowing in the wind. Sunlight bright on Noah's face. I set it on the table, stare at it for hours. I stop calling David. I stop searching for him. I know he's gone, not just from the house, but from my life. He didn't seek revenge, didn't expose my secrets, didn't shame me. He just left, quietly, taking the kids and leaving me with the truth. That was the cruelest punishment. I start writing again, not for the world, but for me. Small stories about Ava, Noah, about the days I was a good mom. I send a letter to David's lawyer, not asking for custody, but to send gifts to Ava and Noah. Books for Ava, a new soccer ball for Noah. I don't know if he accepts, but I send them, a small atonement. I stand before the mirror, seeing a woman who's no longer Ethan's Emily, no longer David's wife, but someone learning to face herself. I don't know if I can improve like the judge said, but I know I have to try. Not for David, not for Ethan, but for Ava, Noah, and whatever part of me is left.